After the death of their daughter, Jessica Redfield Ghawi, in the Aurora Theater shooting 10 years ago today, Sandy and Lonnie Phillips hit the road in a mission to help other shooting victims. 9 News reporter Nelson Garcia caught up with both Sandy and Lonnie Phillips on the East Coast, talking about their mission. Here's Nelson's interview.
First of all, thank you very much, Sandy. Thank you very much, Lonnie, for talking to me. And I know that you guys have been busy and traveling, and it's been a very sad past couple of months and even yesterday. But just kind of obviously we're doing this 10 years after the Aurora shooting. So I know that you've been vocal about what you've been doing, but just kind of talk about, what have you guys been up to, over the past 10 years? What's your mission? What are you guys trying to accomplish?
Well, we went to the trial in, what was that, 7 years ago now?
Yeah.
And after the trial, we went to the trial in a camper and stayed on a friend's property and went to the trial every day. And at the end of the trial, we had gotten so used to being in the trailer that it was like, why don't we just keep doing what we're doing and start reaching out to other survivors in other communities? Because by the end of the trial, we had met just about anyone and everyone that was affected by that horrible night in the theater. And we became friends with a lot of them. And hearing their stories in the courtroom, going through the process of the crime scene videos and the coroner reports, the medical reports, was so horrendous that we just felt like our hearts had been ripped out again. And getting to know the wounded became really important to me, that they had a voice. So we started going from community to community to community and working with other grassroots organizations, got very involved with the Wounded in America and the grassroots organizations across the country, and we're still doing that work today.
Lonnie, how does that help you just deal with everything, even now?
Well, even now, when we, it was 3 years before the trial. So we started out working for the Brady organization not too long after Sandy Hook happened. So that was our first foray into meeting with other survivors. And that's when we kind of decided this is what we want to do. We didn't have a plan on how to do it or what we were going to actually. We ended up with the fifth wheel going all over the country at that time, but we just kind of evolved into that because when we met those survivors in Sandy Hook, it just kind of told us this is our calling. Is when these people need help, we know what they're going to go through. They have no idea what they're going to go through, and in 5 months we learned a lot. We dealt with the Community First debacle there that collected $5 million in Denver. You know about that. So we knew we were going to have, and told them they were going to have trouble with that, and they did. Also, we told them about the people the online conspiracy theorists that were going to come after them, and they did. So everything we predicted was true. It came true, and that's been true with every single one of them.
So 5 months after our shooting, Sandy Hook happened. And that was our first response, going to Sandy Hook. And we seem to have been on the road ever since, really. And of course, now we're having more and more mass shootings, and we're having more and more shootings, period. And building that bridge from the mass shootings, who seem to get a lot of the attention from media, and rightfully so. They're a form of terrorism. But we have terrorism happening in neighborhoods across America every single day. So we tend to focus on the horrific mass shootings, but there are slow motion mass shootings happening every day in communities across the country.
When you guys decided to go on the road and to meet people face to face as people who have been through this before, what do you think it does for them to know that this couple drove here hundreds of miles, thousands of miles to support me in my time of anguish. What do you think that does for those people to know that you guys physically went there?
Well, we know what it does for them eventually. It's also interesting. We were just talking about Sandy Hook. There's one mother who's become, I would say, a dear friend, somebody that I love and admire very much. And we met her 4 times in the first year. And she didn't remember us until the 4th time. And she was like, oh, you're the people. And it was like this little light bulb went off. And she goes, I remember everything you told me, but I didn't remember it was you. And so we hear that a lot. We hear that, I was in such shock when we met, or, I remember that you told me this, that, or whatever. But it didn't really hit me until I experienced what you told me was going to happen. And then I believed you. And we hear that a lot, don't we, baby?
It's very rarely that we get to connect when we first get there, because of course everyone's in shock, but we make a lot of other connections that eventually get us in touch with the survivors. On one occasion in Parkland, we were lucky enough to get on the phone with a survivor as we were standing in front of his, at the memorial. There was a cross, and we were standing in front of it when word had reached him that he should call us. And he did. And when he did, when we told him we were standing in front of his son's memorial at the cross, he was intrigued, and it was kind of unusual if that would happen. But we got to talk to him that day, and we talked to them for 3 hours. They were very, of course, skeptical about who we were and what we wanted. It didn't take very long for them to understand. And we told them, I said, well, you need to take notes, and you need to have somebody with you that you trust that can take notes, and you could record this because you're not going to remember. And to this day, we're still very close to them, and they have become good friends, and so they're not very active. And we find that a lot of the people we talk to don't become active. They're pretty rare, but we do help them, and they do stay involved. It's for some length of time.
And we've also learned that, in fact, that experience of telling people, feel free to take notes, you record us, whatever you need to do, so you have something to refer back to, led us to our work with Giffords and Giffords Courage. And we developed a survivor's toolkit. So everything that we actually tell them, we can give them this pamphlet, this booklet, that they can refer back to later on and have as a reference point. And that's been very helpful to both survivors of mass shootings and individual everyday shootings that happen in our neighborhoods.
But what do you think the difference is for people when, I mean, you could make a phone call, you could get in a Zoom interview, you could do FaceTime and communicate with these other survivors, but why is it important for you to physically be there?
There's nothing like a survivor to survivor hug, or just a hand holding or a touch. People know that you have walked in their shoes. And knowing that they're not alone. When this happened to us, we were in Texas. Our daughter was in Colorado, and there was no one to help us through or tell us next steps or what to expect. And we just decided that we didn't want anyone ever going through that abyss alone again. So, even all we could do is maybe during like COVID, all we could do is a FaceTime or send them the handbook. At least they had that. But then following back around and having that, even if it's just a moment, to actually embrace another survivor really gives them the strength, because they know that, well, if these people made it, I'm going to make it too. I'm going to live through this too. And believe me, when it first happens, they don't want to live through it. They just want to curl up and die.
I'm experiencing a little bit of trouble with your videos going in and out.
Oh dear.
Are you guys on Wi-Fi?
Yeah, we are.
Okay. Well, I
Hang
guess
on,
we'll
let
just,
me.
the other cameras are rolling, so I guess I'll just have to hope for the best.
Oh,
Are
Um,
we freezing?
yeah, I
yeah.
think you guys are fine. You guys are fine right now, but like you were going in and out a little bit. So,
Okay.
um, let me ask you this. Obviously it's almost 10 years after Jesse passed. How do you feel like what you're doing honors her memory?
Oh, we feel like we're honoring her memory every day. Our tour is called Honor with Action Tour 2022. Um, and the plan was to go to 20 cities, 20 states and 22 cities. But that got kind of thrown out the window with the recent mass shootings we've been experiencing. Having to turn around from Buffalo to go to Uvalde, Texas, and then back to Buffalo, and then on from there, kind of screwed up the tour and screwed up the budget, messed up the budget, something fierce.
But it was phenomenal that
But
we were so close to Buffalo when it happened.
yes, we were close to Buffalo when it happened. We were in New York, and we were able to respond very quickly. But then, of course, Texas was a whole different matter. But I think the saddest part of what we do is that we have to keep doing it. We'd like to work ourselves out of a job. We'd like for this to be a thing of the past that America looks back on and says, shame on us. Why didn't we do something sooner? Why didn't we do something faster? Why didn't we do more to help survivors? Because as you know, and we know, this is happening far, far too frequently in our country, and it's changing the dynamics of who we are as a people because of the trauma.
So, 20 mass shootings is a lot. And it's to the point now where we're reaching a point of diminishing returns. It takes a while once you go to one to get other people involved. And that's what we really are geared up to do, is to get people involved. But we're finding that there's not, out of each shooting, we can only get maybe 20%, maybe if that, to who wants to become active. And those that do are just really good, and they're passionate, and they're good activists, and they're loyal, and they fight. So that's what we reap, not necessarily that we've. And the main thing that we try to do is help the wounded, because they're forgotten, and we try to keep those in mind and help them as much as possible. So those are the benefits that we get. And we know, when you asked about Jessie, that's what she did. When you had the fires in Colorado, she was instrumental in starting a campaign to collect sports equipment for the victims. And that's just who she was. And we knew intuitively that that's what we had to do to help to keep her name alive, and make sure that we helped other survivors.
I think it's really important too that people realize that survivors, the trauma that they suffer affects every part of their lives, and we don't have much out there to help them. So when Lonnie and I when we were looking around at trauma therapy and how hard it is to get, and how hard survivors try to find it and then have trouble finding the right trauma therapist or the right amount of money that they can afford to spend. These are real issues for survivors, and we started seeing those survivors who didn't have the ability to pay for trauma therapy, what they were going through, what the wounded were going through, both emotionally and physically. And then we started mindfulness and looking into mindfulness. And we now have a program that's free of charge for any survivor of gun violence in the country that they can go through online. They don't have to leave their home to do it. And it teaches them how to handle when they're activated, their trauma gets activated by another mass shooting, or anything that might trigger, for lack of a better word, activate their trauma.
And it works instantly. Sandy and I both went through 2 courses of it, and it helped both of us. And MBSR, mindfulness-based stress reduction, it can reduce stress right away just with a few techniques. So it's very, and it has been very helpful too. I think we haven't so far had 40 or 50 people.
Oh no, more than that now. Yeah, we're on our 3rd class now that's starting up in August. So,
and they all benefit from it to some degree.
And we're very proud of it. It's with UCSD. So it's through a university that has been studying this. So we've got the data behind it. So it's based in scientific knowledge.
But as far as the work that you guys are doing when you meet survivors across the country, for you guys, has this helped you heal, over time from Jesse's loss?
You get that question a lot.
And I would say yes. And I would also say there are times that it is so difficult to do and to put our own emotions to one side and realize we're not there to make ourselves feel better. We're there to help this new survivor manage and navigate their new life. So sometimes it's very exhausting. And sometimes after we have responded to a mass shooting, we have to have some downtime. And quite frankly, we haven't had a lot of downtime this year. It's been one after another, after another, after another. And, we're expanding so we can have other people respond, so we don't have to be the only one out there doing that. But at the same time, it's like, this is our baby. We have been doing this for 10 years now, and we don't want to ever really stop doing what we know we're good at. But I sure would like for us not to have a job. I mean, it's really that simple. I would like very much not to have this job, and I would like very much for the rest of the country to help us get to the goal of not having these daily occurrences where we're losing. I mean, right now guns and shootings are the number 1 cause of death in our young people. And that is shameful.
And it's discouraging. When we started out, that wasn't the case. Automobiles was the biggest killer of the youth, 18 to 20, 22, but now it's guns. So that's discouraging for us to know that we've been working this hard for so long and it's getting worse. And it's growing exponentially. Every time we have one of these mass shootings, the ripple effect goes out. If you count the dead in 10 years that we've been doing this, and now it's at 40, 45, I think last year was 45,000. Started out, it was 32,000. So, that is very discouraging when you see so many people working hard. And it took, just recently we got some laws passed that really aren't going to help mass shootings a lot. They're helpful, but it's like, we ask for steak and we get carrots and peas. We just didn't get that much with these laws. We have
a lot of work left to do, but we're not discouraged because we see more and more people that are as frustrated as we are, and they're speaking out. And unfortunately, we have more and more survivors, and they're speaking out, and their loved ones are speaking out, and their teachers are speaking out, and their pastors are speaking out. So the ripple effect goes both ways. We're a traumatized nation from all of this violence, but at the same time, the good people are standing up and saying, we have to do something now. We cannot continue the way we're going and be a successful society.
So there's recent laws that were passed that went through the Senate and became law. Like I said, yes, those things are helpful. The GOP has been, every time we say it's the guns, get the guns off the street, they say, well, it's mental health. And that's where the money went this time. A lot of mental health services, it's safety in schools, but nothing. And these new laws take guns off the street. And that's the problem. Every other country in this world has the same mental health issues we do. The only difference is they can't get their hands on guns. It's the guns. It's always going to be the guns. Until we fix that, we're never going to stop the mass shootings, period.
You know, we all forget, I think, that the first few lines of the Second Amendment says well regulated, and we're not well regulated. Guns in this country are not well regulated, and we're fooling ourselves. And those who think that they're well regulated are fooling themselves as well.
But you're talking about this fight, which is continually uphill. It sounds like it's continually frustrating. That's a lot of stress, a lot of energy that you guys have had to bear. When you guys talk with other survivors, you are bearing some of their stress on your shoulders as well. You've been doing it for so long, you travel. I mean, how are you guys doing that? How are you guys able to withstand all of that pressure and stress and frustration and sadness and still carry on? How do you guys do it?
Because we have found joy. Even after Jesse's death, I really, truly thought I would never find joy again. I would never find happiness. And we have. It's a different kind of happiness. It's a different kind of joy. And if I didn't have him by my side, I wouldn't be doing this anymore. I couldn't do this without his strength. And I don't think he could do it without.
It goes both ways. I mean, if either one of us were missing in this equation, it just wouldn't happen. I wouldn't have the ability to do what she does when she's a mother, and I'm supporting her and help in every way I can. But, I love my stepdaughter very much. I met her when she was 5 years old, and we become instant buddies, and I loved her like my own. But I'm not her mother. And Sandy has gone through, I have watched her go through a lot of stress. Like you said, you can't help but take it on. And I think a lot of people don't realize out there that survivors, every time we see another mass shooting, survivors are re-traumatized over and over and over again. And we're having them back to back. It's just, it's frustrating is a good word. Angry is another good word. My voice gets a little louder and a little more, I say sometimes I have to control my, when I'm in private conversations, I don't hold back too much. I'd have to kind of pull it in on television, but it's frustrating to see this happening over and over again. And then the Supreme Court do what they did in New York and set back a 100-year-old law. And now with the new law that they just passed, are they not the law that they have struck down? It's going to put thousands more guns on the street. I mean, it's not just in New York, but other states will do this. They'll follow suit. So that's one of the most frustrating things to happen almost in unison with the laws they pass, which we know is not really enough. I mean, the background check bill has been laying on McConnell's desk for years. It's still there after this law was passed. And the only reason they did it was they had back-to-back shootings, Buffalo and Uvalde. So it's the mass shootings that's driving the change, even though you'll hear, they only 2% of people are killed with mass. Well, yeah, that's true. They get the attention. But if it wasn't for mass shootings in Parkland, there was already a law on the books that was going to be passed, reciprocity law, which means if that law had passed and it was set to be, it would have passed the Senate if Parkland hadn't happened. So mass shootings is what drives this change. And it's so frustrating that this many people have died.
Unnecessarily. And I think that's the hardest part in the work that we do, is that all gun deaths are unnecessary and preventable, just like car deaths were from lack of seatbelts, cancer deaths because of smoking. It's preventable. We have the ability to do it, but we have to get our nation, leaders of our nation to do the right thing. And what's happening now, and the reason those bills got passed, bipartisan bill got passed, was because there was so much pressure from the people. And we have to remember that we, the people, do have the power. We don't have the money, and that's what's corrupting our system, but we do have the power, and we have to use that power, and we have to use it every single day, especially when it comes to this issue. It has to be, if not your number one issue when you vote, it has to be number two.
So this law that we just passed is going to send billions of dollars over maybe a 5-year period to the states to pass their own laws, which they're already doing. It's going to help, but it's not going to change anything on the federal level. And that's the problem.
That is the
We have
problem.
to get all the violence is going to continue until we get federal laws to stop it. The states, they're going to pass, some are not going to pass. It's just like when we had Obamacare, some of the states, some of the southern states wouldn't accept it, and their people got hurt by it. Same thing is going to happen with these laws, and then they're going to say, look, we passed a bunch of laws and gave a bunch of money, but look, nothing happened.
Nothing worked. And then we're back to square one again. So we have to educate ourselves about this issue, and we have to stand up for ourselves when it comes to this issue. So Lonnie and I are going to the White House on the 11th, which I think this is our 6th trip to the White House. And you're always honored to be included and invited. But for us, it is not a victory lap. It's okay, we did something, but there's so much more to do, and let's not forget that. Let's keep our eye on what really needs to be done in order to alleviate the pain that this country is going through with gun violence.
Can I ask you guys just some kind of like logistical questions? So, I mean,
Sure.
obviously, it's related to the whole effort. I mean, you are literally driving across the country, at least when the rig is fixed, you'll be once again driving
Yes.
across the country.
Yes.
To be respectful, you guys are both getting older.
Mhm.
Physically, it's difficult to,
Yep.
to do what you guys are doing. So how do you manage that? Is it getting hard to do what you're doing? I mean, physically, you're always on the go. You spend a lot of energy when you get to these places. Kind of talk about that. How do you manage that?
Well, you're right. We aren't spring chickens. I'm 73 almost in next April, and Lonnie is 78. And we know that we know we're in our final years, and we are both beginning to feel it. And we're moving a little slower than we did when we were younger. And it is taking an emotional toll as well, which is why it's so important that our work either is totally successful, where we don't have to be doing this anymore, and we get federal laws in place that alleviate the problems that we're having with gun violence, or we find other people that can help us do what we do. And that is taking place as we speak. We don't have to respond to Chicago because we have so many contacts in the Chicago area that are responding for us. And now that we have the toolkit, we can get the toolkit to those people. They can download it for free from our website. Anyone can download it for free on our website, and that gets to the people even faster. So we're putting things in place so that the legacy will go on, and Jesse will be remembered through that legacy. But we don't have to be the ones doing all the heavy lifting like we've been doing for 10 years now.
And when the tour is over, we have made plans to take about a 1-year hiatus to Mexico, and we've looked at a place there that we're going to hang out where things are a little more safe, peaceful. So yeah, we're winding down, definitely winding down.
Our organization won't, but we will.
And you deserve to rest. I mean, you really do, especially after
Thank you.
You're right about that.
Do you mind if I ask you? Obviously, this is going to air, around the 10-year mark. I mean, what do you guys want people to remember about Jessie? About her personality, about what she stood for. I mean, of course, even a lot of people have just moved to Colorado since then, so they may not remember or know much about her. So just what would you say you want people to remember, 10 years later about Jessie?
That's so interesting that you said that. It was 10 years ago and so many people have moved to Colorado. What we find now, even among gun violence survivors, and Uvalde really brought this home. Those children that were killed in Uvalde were 10 years old. It's been 10 years since Jesse's died. Those children never knew about Jesse or the theater shooting. Most of those parents have probably forgotten about Jesse and the theater shooting. So it's not just about Jesse. For us, it is, of course. She was our daughter, and it's always going to be about Jesse for us. But she was such a giving, loving person, and she was so much fun. And as you know, she was covering the Avs when she was killed. So to have the Avs 10 years later bring home the cup, the whole thing, that whole connection, how much she loved hockey, how much she couldn't wait to get to the stadium, whenever they were playing, whenever she was covering them, how she got tickets for us when she was covering them one day. And Lonnie doesn't know anything about hockey, didn't care anything about hockey. So he brought a book to read, and she's up in the sports area covering the play by play, and she's watching Lonnie read a book, and she comes down during the break and she goes, "You're reading a book during a hockey game? What's wrong with you?" So that kind of sense of humor and that passion and that total devotion. She loved the game so much. She loved Colorado so much. She was so full of life and so full of love, and loved us deeply and always showed it. And
actually, I was reading the book just to tweak her. And I wasn't really concentrating. I mean, I enjoy the rough and tumble of hockey myself. And that's what turned her on about it, because when I met her, we would always have it, you ever see the Pink Panther where guy would sneak up behind you and hit you try to catch him up. Well, she did that, and that's the game we played. Well, she got so big, she started hurting me. And, but, she just rough and tumble kind of girl, and that's what she was. She was a lot tomboy, but she
was the most feminine tomboy you'd ever want to know.
Used to frustrate her brother, who was about 16 months older, because she could hit a baseball better than she could. I mean, she could hit one better than him, and it used to frustrate him. But she was, she was a sports. That was her thing.
That was her thing. Yes, that and seeing sunrises and sunsets. She had lots and lots of those pictures on her phone when she was killed, and so we never look at a sunrise or a sunset without thinking of our baby.
So that just leads me to one final question. It's nearly 10 years later. You guys obviously remember how difficult it was for you immediately after her death. How would you assess where you guys are now, considering how terrible it was immediately after the shooting?
It depends on the day you catch me. The body keeps the score. There's a book out that's The Body Keeps the Score when it comes to trauma. It changes your DNA. And I don't need to look at a calendar. In fact, we've been so busy, I haven't looked at a calendar much at all. And my body knows it, because I started having dreams about guns and shootings. And they're not dreams that I would call nightmares, but they're definitely uncomfortable, and dreams that you wake up and you're anxious and not as rested as you should be and could be. And that's been happening now for over 2 weeks. So I always know without looking at a calendar, okay, it's that time of year. And it usually starts about a week before July begins. And it usually lasts until about a week, 10 days after July's over. And that's just part of life, So to answer your question, it really does just depend on the day. There are days that, I get teary-eyed still. I don't cry as often as I once did. but the pain's the same. It's
I
just
never
not
know
as
when
often.
never know when it's coming. I mean, when she spoke about the Avs winning the Stanley Cup, she didn't tell you that she cried.
Oh, I did.
She cried because her first thought went, if only Jesse was here to see this. So everything is bittersweet. Nothing can be enjoyed completely and fully without her in the picture. So yeah, that's the way our life is. And we cried. I cried. Depends on the memory that presents itself to me. But it's something that's part of our life now.
You don't get over the loss of a child. You don't get over the loss of a loved one, especially when it's a violent death. It's with you all the time, and people will say, you need to get over this and move on, but they don't understand that you don't move on from this. You do move forward, but you don't move on.